have a quick look at a flavour of what it feels like to be on a survey on the Endeavour on our home ship, and then we'll move on to a bit more of an international flavour. So what field work and RV experiences feel like in a more international setting. So a sort of a more global feel to some of the work that we do. If you've got any questions as we go along, please put them in chat and we can pick them up as we go along. But equally, we'll have a little break between the two bits of footage, bits of video, and there'll be an opportunity for you to ask any questions of our scientific panel that might come up as you watch these little bits of video. So with no further ado, we will begin with a day in the life of, well, the Cefas Endeavour.
As part of the first year of my PhD in conservation genetics, I boarded a research vessel headed for the Irish Sea and the English Channel, the RV Cefas Endeavour. I experienced what it's like to work in the British research world. We dodged storms for 2 weeks. I deployed zooplankton nets, sampled water for environmental DNA, filtered endlessly, and spent my time cleaning. Okay, there wasn't just cleaning involved, but also fish, and I managed to sample a lot of specimens from my own PhD project. With all that, I somehow found the time to also record videos for this channel. Despite a lot of repetitive and meticulous lab work, it was a beautiful trip, and with this video, I bring you my experience of a night in the life of a marine biologist. It is past midnight and I am actually quite late for my shift. So I gotta run.
It's CTD time!
Birds! Oh, the rosette is ready. Oh, cool. Looks pretty cool.
It's cool.
Are we close to the coast?
I have no idea.
So we're waiting for the boat to be in the proper position to deploy the rosette.
There are dolphins as well.
Oh wow, dolphins.
I think it may be them.
Ready, dolphins?
Ready. For rosette deployment. Yeah. It is making work very hard to have dolphins around. Come on, dolphins. Oh, there they are. So here's the rosette. And there's dolphins passing just beside the rosette. Oh, there it is. It made that sound again. That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Well, not the weirdest. I've heard of a lot of weird things. Oh, it's like banging on the rosette.
Quite interested, aren't they?
They're really interested, yeah. Oh, they're just hanging around it. That is so weird. There's got to be something wrong with their blowhole.
Stuck in it, maybe.
Yeah, or maybe it's inflamed, or maybe it's a bit sick.
Comes up to release air, I think.
The rosette going down. The rosette is in the water. A lot of stuff is happening in the rosette room. What's happening? Yeah, and we are. What's the depth? The depth is 70.
Copy. Could you bring it up to 4 meters, please?
Are you gonna collect samples at 4
Yes,
meters?
I'm collecting some sample at 4 meters. I'm just going to fly a couple of bottles just to collect salinity, phytoplankton, microzoo, chlorophyll, nutrients, so our standard sampling. And then we're moving to zooplankton
Right away.
straight away.
Awesome. The rosette is back. Getting ready for the zooplankton net?
I am indeed.
Still with your left hand.
Always with my left hand. Should we try right with my right hand?
Yeah, give it a go.
This is going to be interesting.
Let's see.
It does look like a 5-year-old with it.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does. Maybe you are better with your left hand after all. Oh, what are these?
I am put in this small little flow meter which has numbered counts, and as it goes down this will turn and then we'll be able to calculate the volume by a known constant made by the manufacturer into cubic water.
So this gives you an idea of the volume of water that is passing through the nets,
Exactly.
basically. So you put it right in the middle of the net, at the mouth of the net.
Yeah.
It is a really nice night. It's not always that nice, right, Hayden?
No, not at all.
No, it's not always that nice. Most of the time, it's not that nice.
This is what we want you to think we do, it's not what we do normally. Come on, stay.
Any dolphins around the net?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Where are they?
Over that side. Doing net samples.
Wait, I didn't catch that because I wasn't filming. Now I'm filming.
I'm just washing off the net from the previous zooplankton sample. This sample I'm going to analyse live very shortly.
Do we have krill in there?
We will have somewhere.
It's small krill.
Very small krill, yeah, baby krill.
Baby krill. Oh, what's cuter than a baby cat?
What's cuter than a baby cat?
Yeah.
Baby dolphin?
What's cuter than a baby dolphin?
Me?
What's cuter than you? Baby krill! Damn it. Can't believe I'm filming. Oh my god. So, we have now sampled the first CTD and zooplankton net of the night, so I can take this stuff off. Well, I'm following you. We are starving. It is 3 in the morning. Well, 2:40 exactly. Everyone is sleeping. And there is the kitchen. And the cook left food for us.
Sorry.
Microwaved fries. I'm a little bit skeptical about the...
Can I just say the chips in this country?
Oh, chips. Sorry, chips. We have now finished our lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever that was, and we are working very hard, right?
Yeah.
Watching dolphin videos.
I'm just about to make a tweet, so.
Ah, about dolphins?
Yeah, I'm going to tweet that we saw dolphins swim around our lovely rosette.
We did. I need to follow you on Twitter.
I'll follow you.
Are you following me?
Yes, I am. I believe so.
Wow, I'm famous! Well, I'm gonna need these videos because they're awesome.
We won't not sure about that. The
Oh.
charge.
They charge. Okay, well then I will go that way and film Elisa, who is working very hard. Oh, this is the glove holder. It is so that the gloves dry. It is slightly creepy. And Melissa is the only one who's working hard right now.
So what I'm doing here is filtering some water because I want to collect phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are the microscopic algae that lives in all oceans, in all waters, even fresh waters, and they're extremely important because they are the base of the marine food chain. In this case, we are trying to collect them on a filter. This filter is then going to be analyzed, and we can get some information from this filter. We will know how much was the chlorophyll concentrations, which is chlorophyll is contained inside the phytoplankton cell, and is then used for the photosynthetic process. But also we will have information on all the pigments, and then we can work out what type of phytoplankton was actually in the water.
So Hayden was doing his zooplankton work at the microscope, and Elisa was doing some phytoplankton filtering, and I was actually filming her so that I can have a little interview of her doing that. And now we have another zooplankton not going in, but unfortunately my phone ran out of battery, so it's currently plugged onto the ceiling, because that's where the plugs are, on the ceiling. So I'm not really gonna take it out. I can take it out for 5 seconds to show you. Look at all these seabirds over there. Not you. The monster of the deep is coming back. Make sure you give Hayden a little shower. Hayden seems to have a thing for drowning people in seawater today. Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, and my phone. And there's the method to turn off the hose.
Okay.
It is currently 4:30 in the morning, and Hayden is working really hard.
On my tweet.
Yeah, he's tweeting about dolphins. You've been working on that tweet for 2 hours.
Well, you know, I'm busy doing other things.
Yeah. Film. Oh, well, it is filming. It is now coffee time.
Certainly is.
Yes, so let's go for a coffee. In this magical room, there is a magical instrument. The most important. If this instrument fails, the whole survey
Is granted to a halt.
yeah, granted to a halt.
Sure.
Look at that. That is absolutely magnificent. The most important moment of the morning, of the day, really. I am now heading back in the lab, where I'm gonna start doing my DNA extractions. I can't talk too loud because people are sleeping. I'm gonna see if Hayden is working. How's it going?
Filming as well again.
Yep.
Yeah, getting sleepy.
Yeah, well, it is 5:30. It's that moment where we get really sleepy, 5:30.
This is what I normally do.
He pretends he's working, but really, he's actually sleeping. He says that it's kind of like a cushion.
Yeah, very nice.
Alright, well, I shall now start my DNA extractions.
Would you do me a favour? Will you pass us a big jug?
This?
Uh,
Here you go. The big jug. The big jug. This big jug. Here we go. DNA extractions in the fridge. Because I do work in a fridge. So it's now 5:30 in the morning, and I am, as I call it, in my fridge. And I'm about to get ready for doing some DNA extractions. Before I do that, I actually need to select the samples on which I'm going to do the extractions. So I'm going to do that right now. Here are the samples that I have chosen, and now I need to go and get them. Here are the samples. Gloves. So it's now almost 7. Well, yeah, 10 to 7. And I'm gonna go up on the bridge because apparently the light is really pretty at this time, which I wouldn't know because most of the time I'm down here in the fridge. But today is the time where I'm going to check the sunrise from the bridge.
I'm on mute. Excellent. Thanks all. And again, thanks Maureen for kindly putting that together for us. I think it gives us a really good flavour of, well, certainly a night. I remember them well in the night of an RV survey. That's
Thank you for showing the video.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's brilliant. We kind of underestimate the amount of effort that goes into that, and you know, doing it alongside you know, the scientific work as well is a huge undertaking. So yeah, very much appreciate it. And as we said in the previous session, it gives our folk joining this session a flavour of what it's like to be on the RV, but without the risk of any seasickness or horrible events like that. So that's great. I don't think there's any questions that are coming through in chat, unless I'm mistaken. But, you know, if anybody's got any burning questions that they'd like to ask of our scientists, they're all sitting here available. Ask all those burning questions that you might have always wanted to ask, but never had the opportunity. But in the meantime, it might be worth just sort of having a little bit of a flavour of the perspectives from the scientists that we've got around the virtual table. Hayden, who was the star of the previous video alongside Maureen, I was going to describe what you sort of do and what your survey participation and survey interests are, but I'll let you do that because you're better placed to do it than I am.
Yeah, it was a bit cringy watching it again.
Yeah, on board. So obviously we're collecting the ring nets, which was the big vertical nets coming up to collect all the plankton. And then during the rest of the night, we're basically looking down the microscope for hours. So one sample can take anywhere between 4 and 8 hours. And then we're looking at all the pilchard larvae and pilchard eggs, which then Jeroen uses to do like stock assessment and look for where they're spawning. So if they're changing, moving around. But we don't just look for the eggs and larvae. We also then do all the rest of the zooplankton. So we're looking at all the food web, which then links with the phytoplankton, the oceanographic, the birds, the whales. So it's very much the ecosystem approach that Jeroen's looking at. But yeah, it's a lot of long hours and trying to stay awake, particularly like 4, 5 a.m. as Maureen kept finding me asleep.
I remember doing the night shift, and that hour between 4:30 and 5:30 is the killer.
It's the worst, yeah. I
think it's not to promote any branding, but I think it was the surveys that I remember should have been sponsored by Tangfastics or Haribo, because it was that sugar that kept us fueled, I think, as well as the coffee, as we saw there. I mean, Jeroen, it's kind of your survey that we saw. I mean, Hayden's given us a good sort of flavour of the nature of that survey, and I think it's a brilliant example, isn't it, of how we're not just, we're using the vessel to its absolute optimum in not just looking at one piece of the ecosystem, but doing the work necessary to be able to knit it all together and look at the system as a whole. I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Oh, it was lovely to see that video, wasn't it? And particularly for me, because I'm at the opposite shift, so I don't normally see much of what goes on at night, to be honest. So thank you for putting that together. Yeah, so the whole idea of this survey is that we needed to look at some of this, what we call small pelagic fish. So these are the sprat, sardine, herring, anchovy, one of the species that we're seeing in large numbers in the southwest of the UK. And because they're species that are fished, but up until the start of the survey, there wasn't a lot of information on their numbers and distribution. So, but of course, as Hayden already hinted at, they eat zooplankton, and as such are heavily influenced on what goes on in the lower trophic levels, or the lower elements of the food chain. So we really cannot just count the numbers of fish in isolation. We have to really look at the whole ecosystem, and so it's a nice opportunity to do that. And it gives us an insight in some of the other elements that are going on. We've got marine life, bird, and mammal observers on board as well. So we've been able to count and map some of the rare and common bird and dolphin species that are there. We've seen the arrival of bluefin tuna since the start of our survey. So this is obviously highly significant, because it's a species that's of commercial importance. And while it used to be in our waters, it hasn't been for a long time, and it's made a reappearance. So very very exciting. So I'm not sure I can go on forever, but perhaps it's time for someone else to take over. I was
just going to bring Maureen in, actually. I mean, was this your first experience of kind of working at sea, or were you able to sort of view it alongside other similar opportunities? Was it a one-off?
No, I've actually worked on research vessels for quite a number of years under much, I'm tempted to say much more extreme circumstances, because I spent a lot of time on research vessels in the Arctic and also in Antarctica, but prior to that experience. But I have to say that the water in the Celtic Sea is actually quite something. And whereas I've been used to spend a lot of time in the sea ice with the research vessels and icebreakers, and the boat doesn't really move much, the weather was not the nicest during that survey. So it was, I would say, it was on par with in terms of extremity, even though it's not as isolated. But it's very interesting, because when you work on research vessels, we tend to use the similar methods for sampling zooplankton and looking at water, looking at water salinity or temperature or whatever, or sampling fish. And but the ecosystems are very different. So it was really interesting for me to see, first of all, how Cefas worked and how things were a little bit different on the Endeavour from what I had experienced previously, and also to just see a whole different set of organisms and water profiles and new ecosystems. So it's it was definitely my first experience in those waters.
Excellent. I'm just going to I'm going to try and do technology, so bear with me. I'm going to try and run the next little bit of footage, just so that we've got a little bit of time after this one to, do a bit of chat or ask any questions around this sort of more global look. So this is the away part of the little discussion group. We've sort of seen home on our good ship Endeavour, but we'll now move into a bit more of a global perspective. So bear with me whilst I try and share the relevant screen. Probably got too many windows open. Here we go. Is that working for people?
Yep.
I just need to press play.
Wildlife is my passion, and the marine environment is my favorite place to be. So I love the fact that I get to work with scientists who are discovering new species in this part of the world.
The Blue Belt programme set out to protect 4 million square kilometres of ocean around the UK overseas territories.
The UK overseas territories that are part of the Blue Belt programme are Ascension Island, British Antarctic Territory, British Indian Ocean Territory, South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands, Pitcairn Islands, St. Helena, and Tristan da Cunha.
For Ascension and Tristan, the Blue Belt programme really started right at the very beginning, from engaging with those territories for a desire to enhance their marine protection, working right through to data gathering to understand what was in their waters, to help them identify what sort of management regime would be best for them to put in place, and then going on to help with the legislation.
In 2019, the Blue Belt helped support an expedition to Henderson Island to really highlight the issues of marine plastics in the South Pacific. Some of the coral reefs we saw were absolutely fantastic, and I'm talking about full carpets of colourful corals, some of the most deep corals I've ever seen as well.
For effective marine protected areas and effective management, it's really, really important that they're underpinned by strong governance. That can be having the right policy and legal framework in place, and also making sure that the management measures have teeth. So they have a really important site for whale sharks in St. Helena. The Blue Belt programme worked with St. Helena government. We've assisted in developing a marine tourism policy, and we're also working on marine tourism regulations. If you don't have the right governance in place, then the management measures won't work.
During an expedition just north of St. Helena, we were working with some local mariners who were talking about an area they like to fish, and they were talking about how shallow it was in this area. Turned out that there was a massive seamount in this location. It was something twice the size of Ben Nevis, previously been uncharted and was unknown to science.
Working with the British Indian Ocean Territory, we've been able to help them in prosecuting vessels operating in their marine waters. And also in the case of the Nika, which was operating illegally down in South Georgia.
I think the major decisions that have been made by these overseas territories is a strong commitment to marine protection in its exclusive economic zones. These overseas territory governments have made massive commitments to protect their waters for biodiversity, for sustainable fishing, and for future protection.
Although Tristan da Cunha is a remote island in the middle of the ocean, it has previously had impacts from oil pollution where the MS Oliver ran aground and spilled its cargo and its fuel, causing a real problem for the environment and the habitats there. And what the Blue Belt programme has done is to work proactively with Tristan da Cunha government to help them understand better the volume of shipping traffic and the risk posed. And then with that information, we've helped establish an area to be avoided to keep the shipping traffic further away from the main islands and reduce that collision risk.
Reducing the detrimental impact of human activity has been a really important part of the Blue Belt programme. Human impacts can kind of be put into two different categories. On the one hand, you've got the kind of the local human impacts, but then you've got those more global problems like climate change and marine litter. And we can put direct measures in place through management plans or legislation.
The Blue Belt has been such a unique programme, bringing together people that haven't worked together before with a really clear objective of enhancing the marine environment. So what makes me really enthused is that we're actually having a demonstrable effect on those marine environments. You can actually see where there has been improvements, including return of species, more abundance, cleaner oceans, better resilience to climate change. So really making a positive, demonstrable benefit for the overseas territories and for the rest of the planet.
These remote marine waters need our protection, our care, and our passion for the future.
Doing the usual, back on mute again. You'd think we'd have got used to it by now, wouldn't you? Brilliant. So unfortunately, we don't actually have any of the scientists that were with us in the in this morning's session. Oh, something's happening with my. Hang on. Stop that. Sorry about that. It was still running in the background. We don't have any of the scientists that were with us this morning that were actually a little bit more involved in the Blue Belt programme. So if you do have any questions that kind of relate to that element, then by all means, you know, post your questions in chat or ask them. We'll do what we can to kind of answer, but unfortunately, we ourselves haven't really participated in that particular programme. But the scientists that did, Paul and Serena, who were part of this session earlier, will be more than happy to respond to your questions. So we've got a question in. Andrew, great videos, really enjoyed them. Have always wanted to go on a cruise? Well, there's every opportunity, even if the weather doesn't put you off. Does the Endeavour have an ROV? I can probably start to answer that one in that no, we don't. We don't have our own ROV at Cefas, but we have in the past used ROVs off Endeavour for various. It was mainly around some of the MPA marine protected area surveys that we did. So you know, we found ROVs quite a useful tool for surveying and kind of getting imagery of some of the more sensitive habitats, such as some of the Sabellaria reefs, for example. So you can get a much more controlled method of filming, you know, the seabed and sort of more topographical or complex structures using an ROV. So whilst we don't have an ROV, we do have a number of other, well, we have one at least, other autonomous system. So we have a system that's known as Lyra, and it's a wave rider. And essentially, well, I mean, Alyssa, you probably have a better idea of how it works than I do.
Sorry, I may not be the best. I saw the deployment of it. So it's looks basically a surfboard pretty much, and it has a system underneath that allow it to move with the waves, but there are also solar panel on the top, and it does measurements as well as collect some sample. Maybe somebody else that can probably say much more about that, I guess, between the other Cefas staff attending today.
I'm happy to say a little bit as well. We've actually used the Lyra, the wave glider, as part of a project to monitor the northern North Sea over a longer period of time, using some of the same equipment that we also deploy from our research vessel, so fisheries acoustics. And yeah, so it's something that we're using. It's something that we're trying to integrate into our monitoring program. You know, it's a different instrument, a different platform altogether. Of course, it cannot move very fast because it's very economical when it does, because it, like Elisa said, it uses waves. But so we're still figuring out on how we can make the data that we collect on something that moves a little bit slower comparable to that to those that we move that we collect on something like a research vessel. But there's definitely a place for these platforms. They're relatively cheap. They can stay in the field for very long periods of time. They can be deployed in areas where vessels are perhaps not as suited to go. You know, perhaps some of these gliders even go under the ice, for example. And yeah, so yeah, it's an area that we're working on as well.
Excellent. I noticed, Robbie, you've got your hand up. We've not got a lot of time because we're just about to go back into the other session, but go ahead, please ask any questions that you have.
Hi, can you hear me? I'll try. Yes, I think I'm
yes,
off mute.
We can hear you.
Yeah, thanks for such a fantastic session. It's been really insightful for me as a policy person. So you were saying about all the different types of data that you collect, the different aspects of the ecosystem that that you gather data on in a single trip. But I didn't hear you mention acoustic surveys for the actual, you know, like the kind of stock assessment element that, or other aspects that feed directly into, you know, like the SSB stuff like that. Does that take place in the kind of research trip that we heard about just now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to hand over to Jeroen, because the trip that you saw, the survey that you saw in the first little bit of footage really does draw on that type of approach. So over to you, Jeroen.
Yes, thank you. And good question, Robbie. Thank you very much. So yes, the primary focus of that particular survey is indeed to count the fish using acoustic methods. So so yes, we do that. And like I said a little bit earlier, I think that's part of the bigger picture. So we want to count the fish, but we also want to understand what drives their numbers, particularly when it comes to these small pelagic fish that are strongly influenced by the environment as well as fisheries. So yes, that particular survey feeds into two stock assessments. The first ever sardine stock assessment in the southwest of the British Isles and Sprat, and it contributes to a number of other stock assessments as well, more anecdotally, I suppose. And the good thing to mention, I suppose, is also that some of the data we collect on nutrients and chlorophyll feed into the eutrophication assessment as well. So it really sort of monitors all the different elements of the ecosystem separately and you know, in combination.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Robbie.
I was just saying that's fantastic. Thanks for the clarification.
No, pleasure.
Just to sort of build on that, I mean, it's something that we have been working on for many years now, you know, recognising that the research vessel is a, you know, fantastic platform, but they're also relatively expensive in terms of a platform. So, you know, absolutely maximising everything that we can do as part of a given survey has been paramount, and that's kind of why you see some rather bleary-eyed scientists. You know, we operate a 24-hour system on most of our surveys that use you know, 2 crews of scientists that work back to back over the full 24-hour period. And you know, whilst those scientists do have various specialisms, what we also try to do is encourage some real cross-skilling, so that we are able to, you know, do more than any sort of specific discipline as part of a given survey. So whilst we are all specialists, we're also quite multi-talented as well. And you know, we have fisheries scientists that can go out and collect a water sample, or, you know, do what's necessary in terms of filtering a plankton sample. So yeah, that's definitely the way forward. And, you know, building some of these more innovative and new technologies into that sort of more traditional approach is, yeah, it's the future really, and that's what we're sort of striving to do. And the acoustic surveys, particularly for fish stock assessment, is a really good example of that, I think. I am just conscious of time, and I don't want to keep people from the main content of the conference. So as I said before, if there are any questions that come to mind that you weren't able to ask or you forgot about during this session, please just post them into the chat following on from the meeting, and our folk at this end are more than happy to pick up questions and provide answers once we've all closed. So thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been a good couple of sessions. We've had some really good discussion, and I will now release you 3 minutes late back to the main session. But yeah, thanks again, and thanks for the panel's input, particularly Marine, for going to all that trouble and putting together the amazing footage as well. So really much appreciated. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your conference, folks.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.